talking to a couple of my old buddies online, and we were sort of like waxing nostalgic for lack of better words, about, things in our childhood. And it was very, very different back in the late 50s, early 60s, and early 70s than it is now. There is not that information overload where something happens and you find out about it like 5 minutes after it happened. We didn't have that. Matter of fact, our only news about movies and things like that would come like reading the North Star Ledger or the Daily News or something to see what kind of new horror movie is coming out. There was no spoilers on the internet because we didn't have the internet. But what we did have was monster magazines. Famous Monsters of Filmland came out in, I believe, the mid-50s. It was the brainchild of Forrest J. Ackerman and Jim Warren. Of course, the first couple issues were a little bit lame looking, as you can see by the cover I took off eBay here, because unfortunately I don't have my collection anymore. But that was our yardstick. That was the first one. And of course, when one comes out, more will follow. Of course, a lot of them couldn't live up to Famous Monsters. A lot of them, were one-shot deals that maybe were 2 or 3 issues. But still, they were a huge influence back then, because we had to wait till see when they came out. Now, magazines were published bi-monthly and quarterly back then. And as kids, we didn't, have any concept of time. Matter of fact, my whole thing was, where I picked up my magazines was a store called Levine's, which was basically a candy, cigarette, and magazine store. I think it was down in Orange, New Jersey. Now, the way they didn't have like, when you walk in you see magazine racks like one after the other. No, these were like sort of like, picture a shelf, maybe 2 inches wide, where the magazines were stacked where they overlapped each other. So when you went into the store, you'd see like a row of these, things like this. This is actually original Playboy. God, what year is this one? Bang, waxing nostalgia. You had a lot of shit before you got to the contents. I don't know, 50-something here? Shit, I can't even see it. Anyway, you had them. You had men's magazines that were lined up. Things like this one here. One called Climax. All these sort of featured, different things on it. Plus, they could advertise cigarettes back then, because that was before we figured out they'd kill us. Another one called Champion for Men. And you could get like stupid ass jobs from the back. These are very interesting magazines where you can find them. So, and also we had, of course, our little Hollywood type things here, that type of thing. This magazine was, most of these magazines were 35 cents. So in addition to Famous Monsters, I do have some shit left. You had Castle of Frankenstein, which was a more cerebral approach to the genre. Joe Dante wrote for Castle of Frankenstein with Dante's Inferno. It was published by Calvin Beck, and it was published irregularly out of Jersey, but it actually went up to, I think, maybe 30, 40 issues toward the end. Also, Charlton Comics put out 2 monster magazines, Mad Monsters and Horror Monsters, which came out quarterly, like 4 times a year. Stan Lee actually got in the action, because he had these magazines called Monsters to Laugh With and Monsters Unlimited, which basically was, one page would be a scene from a monster movie with, the cartoon balloon captions with something that was supposed to be fucking funny. Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't, but even Stan Lee got in the act. Fantastic Monsters was the brainchild of Makeup Man and creature creator Paul Blaisdell out in California, that went up into a bunch of issues and was really, really a good magazine. But unfortunately, Paul had a partner, and a mysterious fire burned down the office and every back issue of the magazine. So these are very well prized. There was also a 3Ds Monster magazine, which came with, the shitty, blue and or green and red glasses, whatever the hell you got. That was a short-lived one. I think that only did one issue. Then Famous Monsters had a spin-off called Monster World, which I subscribed to after the 3rd issue, which didn't last past, a couple issues after that. It stopped, and that's one of the reasons why I never took any subscriptions for Grindhouse Purgatory, because you never know when shit's going to end. There was another magazine called World Famous Creatures, a newsprint magazine called The Monster Times, and then we went into artistic type things, comic type things, like the old EC Comics came back with Creepy and Eerie, and we were reintroduced to artists like Frank Frazetta, Jack Davis, Wally Wood. I'm trying to think who else wrote for this thing. This thing had a ton of people writing for it. Staff artists were then Reed Crandall, Jack Davis, George Evans, Frank Frazetta, Al McWilliams, Gray Morrow, Joe Orlando, Angelo Torres, and Al Williamson. All great artists and cartoonists, and they put this thing on the map. This is Creepy number 4, and again, 35 cents. Another interesting one that came out, I think it only went 4 issues, was Shriek. It took a more adult approach to horror movies and featured the Flesh Eaters in its first issue. And of course you could, buy dumb shit off the back of it. What else? Oh, another, okay, here's the 2nd issue of Creepy. 2nd issue. Of course you had Uncle Creepy, who was a creation of someone on the back. I don't know if there was a different motif here. No, it was basically the same guys. Frank Frazetta did the cover. Frank Frazetta did a lot of the covers. But like I say, and this is, I'm dedicating this to my buddy Eddie McHale, who is really into this stuff and has a huge collection. People might ask me why I don't have a huge collection and why I sold off a lot of this stuff. Well, to be honest with you, I don't really have any heirs except for, a sister and a brother, and they're not really into this stuff. I never had any kids, so they're not into this stuff. And, I'm hitting that age where every day is a fucking gift. So, sad to say, if I went belly up tomorrow, all the shit's going to wind up in a dumpster or sold at a yard sale or something like that. So, not only do I have to eat and pay the bills, but I would rather see these things wind up in the hands of people who truly appreciate them, as opposed to people who would basically clean out my house and go to flip the stuff. I'm hoping that there still is an appreciation for this stuff out there. When I hit a certain age, I guess I'm probably around 30 or something like that, I thought, something, this is going to keep going. We're going to keep this going. But 40 years later, I'm not so fucking sure, because, art is wonderful, but I don't see anybody paying $1,700 for a half sheet of Horror Party Beach anymore. Nor do I see the interest in a lot of these things. Of course, we'll always have Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman around. They're, ageless icons, and, I guess to a lesser extent, you're going to always have Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers and Leatherface around, because those were the monsters for the new millennium. I respect that. But, like I said, it seems to me that the interest in a lot of this stuff is waning, and people just don't have the appreciation that people like I had, for it. So, that being said, I've, done my best to keep the genre alive, from when I first discovered it up until, when everything changed and became corporate and shitty. And, people don't realize how wonderful this stuff was, because, like I said, we didn't have the immediate gratification that, you get today. We had to wait. and look and dig. I mean, it wasn't like, there was, you could flip on eBay and find an issue of creepy. No, you had to find, there was actually backdate magazine stores then. A lot of them in New York, a lot of them in New Jersey. Passaic Book Center comes to mind. Forbidden Planet over in New York to a lesser extent. There was backdate magazines places, I believe, on either 43rd or 44th Street. There was always a place where you could buy backdate magazines. Now, and part of the fun was just going into places, even like places like New York City Liquidators, just digging through boxes and boxes of shit to find that little gem that would be, the tiara in your collection, so to speak. So, unfortunately, like I said, I'm hitting that age where I really don't want to see this shit wind up at a dumpster at the end of the day. The DVDs I keep because those are the actual movies and things. But other things I'd rather see other people get them that appreciate them, and I still appreciate this stuff. Magazines sort of went into decline for a while, and then came back with a vengeance when Fangoria was born. But Fangoria was great up until it changed the hands and editors and then became, a fanboy fucking stroke fest. So you don't have that today, but then you had, you also had the underground zines like Sleazoid Express. Oh, God, no, I just had a brain fart here. The Gore Gazette, Carbon 19, all those great, fan-done magazines, which, turned into something I didn't ever think. I always wanted to publish a magazine, and I actually got my wish. I'm just sorry I had to end it, but Grindhouse Purgatory may be over, but something else is going to be born after that, so stay tuned for that stuff. It's just one of those things where basically, like I said, you guys have the world at your fingertips, here where we didn't, because if a movie ran and you didn't catch it on its first run, odds are you wouldn't see it until it showed up cut on TV or in the nether hours of TV. So we didn't have that, and that's why, especially at 42nd Street, when they ran double and triple bills, usually on the bottom of that bill was something that you either had seen before and wanted to see again, or something you heard so much about and you just missed it you wanted to see again. So, that's how it all went down back then. And it's just like, I can wax nostalgic all I like, but that's sort of like my safe place to go back to, because I would spend my weekends off going through these stores and digging through these magazine bins, trying to find something I didn't read, or something, other things. So yeah, it was all good. And like I said, collectors and vendors like Eddie McHale and Cinema Wasteland and others, keep it alive. I just hope we can keep it alive, for a little bit longer than than it seems to go. It's just sad. I just feel bad about it because I just never thought it would end, and to me, it just seems to be waning. But hey, that's my opinion. Opinions are like assholes. We all got them. So, on that happy note, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. If you need anything from me, email me directly at grindhousepurgatory@gmail.com. Like I said, we're hitting the end of the year. A lot of things will be coming to an end. If you need my book, Whole Bag of Crazy, the trivia book, or the Gunfighters of the Drunken Master book, they will be out of print as of December 31st. So I would advise you to grab them now. Please try to grab them from me, because Amazon just takes everything, and I really don't want to finance a fucking billionaire's trip to outer space. So, all right, stay safe, mask up, and we'll see you on the flip side.